All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited, and I am joined by.
Jerome Bourgeois, co-creator, co-founder of Movers Shakers Unlimited. How's everything, guys? How's everything, Brandon? How you been, man?
What's up? What's up? What's going on, JB? Thanks for those of you that are watching. As you know, every Saturday we like to do a show known only as This Week in Review, in which we give the rundown of many of the things that happen over the course of the week in our industry, in the entertainment industry. That is, whether it's film, TV, theater, music, what have you, business. We like to touch on it or review it. Now, with that being said, before we get into a few of the stories that are happening today, we're going to be only doing maybe half of what we normally cover. It'll be a somewhat shorter show. I know we've said that before, and things have carried on because we get so passionate about a lot of these stories. But with that in mind, I want to still get into some things to keep in mind, some minutes, if you will. Just know that if you aren't watching our show as it stands now live, that you can also check out the show obviously as an archive episode. And if you want to still be a part of that conversation of a lot of the things that were discussed in a given show, make sure you're using that hashtag of TWNRMNSU. So that's This Week in Review, Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Also, if you want to be a Patreon supporter, we are on Patreon. So, by all means, if you enjoy a lot of the content that we provide here, you can be a Patreon supporter as well. So you can check the link right down below. And with that in mind, I want to also send a shout out to, our Patreon supporter, Joel Bourgeois. Thank you so
What's
much,
up, sis?
for being a Patreon supporter with us. And as I said, we have some nice perks in place, for those who decide to be supporters with us. So by all means, check that out. And as I said, you can find the link down below. All
Shout
right.
out to South Korea because that's where she's at. So you could be international
Okay.
and support too. Hey.
Okay. All right. There you go. There you go. So just hopping right into the stories that we had today. The first one that we're going to get into deals with, the iconic singer known only as Whitney Houston. Over this week, we did get news of some casting additions that would be made by way of that biopic. And we have news that Ashton Sanders and Stanley Tucci will be have been added to the cast for some known figures, if you will. I guess it's an understatement that were a part of Whitney's life. So of course Bobby Brown, Mr. Sanders will be portraying that role, and Tucci will be portraying the Grammy Award winning producer known only as Clive Davis. So you hear this news, Jerome, in terms of these casting additions to this biopic, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I thought this was really good, interesting news because you know, uh, I followed. I like following the business part of the music industry and like the whole discovery aspect. And I mean, there's no denying like Clive Davis is like probably Puffy's Diddy said this. He's probably the best A&R to ever live as a in the music industry. So because of all the talent that Clive Davis has signed and developed, I mean, it's like crazy. Like he has like the golden years. But I just thought that when I saw that the photo of Stanley Tucci and I saw that he was cast, I was like, wow, he does look like him. I was like, that is kind of perfect casting. Ashton Sanders, at first I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, he's a really good actor. But then I was like, but is Bobby Brown? I was like, because I keep thinking of Bobby Brown, as he's older. But I'm like, no, if you think about when he just started and he was younger, yeah, I could see that. So no, I think it's two great additions to the cast. And let's not forget, I mean, the actress who's playing Whitney Houston is Naomi. What's her name? Naomi Aki. And I totally forgot. I was like, she was in Master of None, so it's like she's really good too. So, and it's kind of good that they're going with like, she's not as known here, and also, even I'm not saying the other guys aren't known, but they're just such good like character actors, and they really become chameleons in their roles that, I think it's perfect casting. Like that they're really taking it seriously and taking it seriously, and it just shows the quality of this project to cast these actors and the direction they're going in. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, Ashton Sanders, he's been great in, he's been playing RZA on that Wu-Tang, An American Saga. I've been watching that. So, and he was obviously in Moonlight. Right. He was in Moonlight. He was in Equalizer 2. Like, he's a really good actor. And Stanley Tucci, I mean, come on, that guy's been around. He's been in The Terminal. He was in Pelican Brief. I mean, you keep naming. He's been in so many movies. Oh, Transformers. What was that? I think Age of Extinction. I mean, he's been in so many movies. And he's such a great actor. I'm glad that he's getting his just due, getting these bigger roles, and he's got nominated. He's definitely gonna probably win his award, the awards that are just due to him. But
and I was gonna say, to your credit of talking about how much they resemble. Let me bring it up.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's
now. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there is some resemblance there. So like, and as you said, Tucci is a terrific actor. So I'm sure he will make, even though he is basing it off of a real person. I know sometimes that can be I know in some instances it can be a little challenging, and having that and making sure that you do that person justice. But as I said, he's a terrific actor. So. If anyone can pull it off, he for sure can. So,
and it's also, I would also say, like, I don't know if you've seen the Clive Davis documentary on Netflix. It's amazing, like just showing his story. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually do like a Clive Davis movie, but his story is amazing. Like how he, anyone, shout out to NYU. There is the Clive Davis recorded music, Academy of Recorded Music. So he's definitely giving back. But it was, I mean, the story of like how he was just going to law school. I mean, but he lost his parents. I think they passed away when he was like in college or something, or when he was younger. And then he it's weird. It's kind of like he fell into the music industry. Like he was an executive. He was like a lawyer working, I think, at CBS Records or something. And then after they liked him so much, they brought him on as one of the heads, one of the record label heads in one of the departments, and then he just moved his way up, and then he just kept signing all these amazing artists. I mean, from Janis Joplin to Whitney Houston to, I mean, the list keeps going on. He signed Alicia Keys later on. I mean, so his story is pretty amazing, but he's very integral to Whitney Houston's success because he found her when like nobody was. Looking for that, I mean, everyone was looking for talent, but it's like he found her when like nobody knew her and really, nurtured that talent. And I mean, just, you could see by the record sales and awards. I mean, she's the most awarded female singer of all time and one of the highest grossing, singers when it comes to the record sales. And then also, obviously, the Bodyguard soundtrack is still the number one, selling soundtrack of all time. So, I mean, and there's no denying Whitney Houston. I mean, she's a legend. Rest in peace. So I'm glad that this movie's turning out. It seems like it's coming together really well. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But yeah, I just think the casting is done really well, and it's. I feel like they're really going to delve deep into like her story and like what made her great, and I like seeing that. I always like seeing that in films, like with Ray or Straight Outta Compton, the biopics that do that. So yeah.
For sure. And I mean, it's always interesting to see biopics and just in general, as you said, because I'll be honest, in a lot of cases, it seems like, and I could be wrong about this, but it's just my opinion. It's sometimes, in some instances, it seems like there's an agenda involved of trying to show like one perspective of a person's story, and a lot of times, like some films suffer from that, and I feel like hopefully in this instance, we have an example where we're being able to provide a story from multiple perspectives of each of these figures, and how not only how they shaped Whitney's life, but also how she affected theirs as well. So, based on just the ensemble that they have, just as you said, talented ensemble. So I'm very much looking forward to, what they have in store for us, for sure. All right. So one story that I wanted to get into as well, and I'm sure it's been making the rounds, and a lot of people have been hearing about it. Is a small little strike that is in as a possibility of happening. Um, can you talk to me about this, Jerome? So the strike for the
IATSE, yeah,
IATSE, yes.
it's been long overdue. I mean,
Crazy.
look, let's be real. Look, I mean, entertainment and the entertainment industry is an amazing industry. A lot of people want to work in it, and to get a really good job or to move up the ladder, that's definitely a privilege. And to a certain extent, it's like there's obviously a higher, so you could say there's a higher supply. I mean, a higher there's a lower demand and a higher supply because there's so many people trying to get in. And we get that. A lot of people want to do, they would love to have a job in the industry working on productions, whatever. That's a given. But the caveat to that is because there's so many people trying to get these jobs, it's sad to say that even in the union, and these are unions that are well, this is the main union for like crew members that's about to authorize a strike, or I think they're voting on it. I don't know if they voted right, but it's probably going to happen. There's still these workers are getting overworked. I mean, it's ridiculous. Some of these things that haven't been improved on throughout the years, like less.
And I apologize. Let me do this. Let me just preface it before you continue, Jerome, in terms of talking about what's at stake here. So, for the IATSE strike, it basically is a strike over just talking about some of the grievances that are at stake. So giving an example, the idea of excessively unsafe and harming working hours, unlivable wages for some of the various crafts that we have in the industry that are not the the glitz and glamoury related components of the entertainment industry that a lot of people may not necessarily think of, but they're still pivotal to the industry, whether it's in film and TV, and then also other things such as consistent failure to provide rest breaks and workers on new media streaming projects, getting paid far less than they, normally should for their services and their talents. So, I mean, there are a couple of companies that are not in the glare, so to speak, of this strike, and those include organizations, companies such as like HBO, Showtime, Star, Cinemax, BET. They're not they haven't been brought into this strike as of yet because of the agreement, and it hasn't expired. It doesn't expire until what is it? According to this article from Deadline, from this exclusive, it won't expire until December of next year. So December of 2022.
Yeah.
That's not the case elsewhere with other folks. So yes, Jerome, I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, no, of course. I
mean, background on that, but go ahead.
I definitely want to get there, but I just wanted to try and give people context of like why this has actually been going on so long. And like I said, it really has to do with, look, this is an industry that they know a lot of people want to get into it. So, I mean, like I said, I've worked in it. I still work. I kind of do it independently right now, and we do our own thing. But I know exactly what these people are dealing with, and it's reprehensible. I mean, it's ridiculous that how they're getting mistreated. And like I said, these are even union members. I mean, the whole point of the union is to fight for, to negotiate these benefits and these, livable wages, livable working hours, and having that flexibility. And IATSE, which is, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, AMPTP, they represent a lot of these studios and companies, and they're the ones who negotiate with IATSE, which is the International Association of Theatrical Stage Employees, who represent the crew members. And like a lot of these benefits and grievances like we were talking about haven't been addressed for all this time. And you would think with all of these studios, all these companies making so much money, that, that eventually these, they could pay, or they could at least, make it more manageable and easier and more pleasant for the people who work really hard in the trenches to make these movies and TV shows and miniseries actually happen. I mean, of course, you have the above the line talent like writers, producers, directors, and they have the creative vision. But in the end, you need your crew members to execute the vision that you have, and it's not going to get done unless they do it. So, like we were saying, the other parts that are actually that they were fighting for too, that are very important. And what were we saying? It was health plan funding, pension plans, rest breaks, longer turnaround times between production hours and concessions to shorten the workday are among the agenda items that IATSE are seeking for union members. Now, just think about this. I mean, what is it? One example, someone said, let's see, their work-life balance was almost non-existent when she was on the job, missing birthdays, weddings, funerals. Okay. But often those 16 to 18-hour days mean she will find herself living half one day off in 3 to 4 week spans. This is an example of someone who works on productions. But just think about that. Regardless of the industry, how many people do you know work 16 to 18-hour days? I don't care what the industry is. I mean, to me, if you're going to be working 16 or 18 hours, you better be getting overtime or be getting paid a really good wage, and or you need to have breaks. Like, that's just ridiculous. I mean, there's, to me, I feel like there's some mentality like, oh, because it's entertainment, someone else wants your job. And that's someone else will do it. And I feel like this is what's been happening, and people have been scared to lose their jobs, or they know they could be replaced. So there's somewhat of a sense of, okay, I'll just do it anyway. But now it's like been building up, and it's like, and that's why that's the importance of having a union to actually fight for these workers. And I'm glad they're doing it. What's it called? That, I think that's a big deal, because I'll tell you from my own personal experience, I wasn't in the union, but I remember I worked on some reality shows, and I remember, like they would hire non-union people, but even the non-union people, you're working at least 13, 14-hour days, 12 to 14-hour days. And as like, even if you're like a PA, just on the lower end, and they weren't getting paid that much. I mean, they're probably getting like 200, maybe closer, you get closer to $300. I mean, maybe later on you can move up, you do whatever, but like, think about that. 12-hour days or 14-hour days, you get $200 as a PA. Like, I mean, I know that's the entry point, but it's like, that's not a regular 8-hour job. Or not, like, to compare to like a 9 to 5 or something where somebody's, to see what, I mean, you break down what that hourly rate is. I mean, if it's like 200, okay, so if it's like $200 for 10 hours, I'd be like, was it like $20 or whatever? So it's like, that's decent, but it's like you're still working hard. It's just because entertainment, you're still working hard, and like they're not really getting. I mean, you might get breaks here and there, but like, and it's not just that. Think about, then you have to come to set again the next day really early. Like, they have these call times. It could be 6 a.m. whatever. So imagine then you're working really late nights, and then you barely get any sleep. You got to wake up really early. It's like, I'm not saying you can't work these 12-hour days or 14-hour days, or now they're saying 16 to 18-hour days. Like, I get it. Sometimes there's deadlines. You got to make the movie. You got to make whatever production happen. It's got to go. But why not hire more people and like have a rotating crew? So like someone who works until 12 o'clock, they don't need to come in 6 a.m. I mean, that's ridiculous, or whatever. It should be like, all right, the next crew comes in later. Like, if you're going to come in later, get some sleeping hours. So I'm not saying that all productions work like this, but I know that there's people take, some producers, some studios, or whoever's running the set, or they're taking advantage of this. And this is why it's after a while, it's just like, I don't care what job you have. It's just unhealthy. It's bad. It's bad working conditions, regardless of the money. And even with the amount of money, and then also the benefits, like I said, non-union. I remember like a lot of the non-union stuff. I mean, you're working for hire or whatever. You're not getting benefits. A lot of times you don't even get benefits. Like, you have to get your own health insurance. So you have to figure out your own retirement plan. Unless you're working for like a major corporation, you don't even really get like a 401k plan or healthcare. Now with the union, like I said, I don't know all the specifics, but I'm sure they probably have something because they're a union, but they still have to, they still got to negotiate with these companies too to like see if they're gonna, you know, add any of these benefits or whatever group funding they can, because that's another issue in this. I'm not even trying to get political, but like it's just relevant. But the idea of like that's kind of the issue with this country too, just overall, where it's like to get affordable healthcare, usually you get it if you work for a big company because they get that better rate or whatever, unless like the union or these associations have a really good deal. And I mean, that's another way, but a lot of times if you work for a big company, you can get a really good rate for healthcare. But it's usually if you work full time. If you're working as a contractor, which a lot of these employees are, they works for hire. I mean, they're gig workers, or they're working for like a month maybe for on a production. Then they go to another one. They have to make sure that they're saving enough money somehow to like put aside for retirement or put aside for healthcare. And like, you know, even with Obamacare or, you know, the Affordable Care Act, it's still not, you know, it's still more expensive a lot of times compared to, you know, if your employer gave you healthcare. So all these little things, they add up. And like I said, this is not just, I wouldn't say this is for just entertainment industry. There's other industries dealing with this too, but because there's a spotlight on this, and this is an industry that a lot of people love watching TV and everything, it's going to affect everyone's output or input of what they're going to see, because if these shows are going to have to be on hiatus for some time, if there's a strike, it's going to affect that. So I'm glad that they're doing this, at least getting the publicity out there and making people aware, because these movies don't make themselves. You know, you need a crew, you need people, and why not treat them well? I mean, come on. There's plenty of profits out there. You can still make a lot of money. And the issue, I think, also, like, I've been seeing posts on Facebook because I have a lot of film friends who are you know, they're camera operators, producers, production managers, you name it, that work below the line. The main argument has been because, and I remember this back in the day even, that the streaming formula doesn't really that the formula doesn't really finance isn't profitable enough to continue financing these productions alone, because the whole idea of taking away advertisers on like network television, as opposed to now you got to pay the streaming amount, this monthly amount. And I'm like, I call BS on that. That's ridiculous. Like, Netflix has mastered this, and they make so much money. I mean, of course, they're borrowing a lot of money to make to produce these projects, but the money is there. Like, they can, like, I'm not believing that. I'm not buying that. So
you have a lot of new media, and streamers as well, where like there's a tendency where there's I feel like there's a lot of like hiding behind the, you know, what is it, the subscription numbers or like the viewage to kind of get, you know, a picture of where the profits are coming from. And we, you know, can't really, you know, validate, or we can't really, you know, get a picture of what our profits are, because it's more of the viewers. But I'm like, you know, seconding what you said, like the profits are the profits are coming in, because if the profits weren't coming in, you know, the streamer wouldn't be around. Like the whatever the organization wouldn't be around, because it wouldn't be able to, you know, sustain. So like it's coming from somewhere. Even, you know, unfortunately, you know, even if you know, try to hide behind, you know, certain metrics, you know, so to speak, you know, there's still, it has to be coming from somewhere. So, but yeah, like hopefully, you know, and you never want to see instances where folks get to such a point where they have to go to strike. And, you know, just like I was mentioning before, which actually gets into our next story that we're about to cover, you know, hopefully everyone is able to find a, you know, come to an agreement that makes sense for everybody. And especially if it's like so one-sided like that, you know, that party that, you know, is holding, you know, all the cards, so to speak, is able to, you know, understand, you know, the perspective of the other party and be able to come to an agreement with them. So
sorry. Well, lastly, I will say, like, just two things. Another thing that was in this story that I thought was interesting is even little. I mean, then there's some. They were talking about pay equity and racial disparities of even per diem. So there's somebody who says there's someone in this article. Okay.
I want to be able to, you know, credit that one for a Hollywood Reporter, by the way. But go ahead.
It says
Oh,
Charlize.
it's yeah.
No, just say
Variety.
Charlize.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is in the article, the Variety article. Charlize Antoinette Jones, who counts Raising Diane and Judas and the Black Messiah among her costume design credits. Okay, it says the biggest issue for her is pay equity. It was only in 2019 on Raising Dion that she started making scale. Scale is like that minimum amount.
Sure, yeah.
You know, not everybody knows what that means, but yeah, it's
Right.
like a minimum amount you're supposed to get as a union member, and then obviously it goes up in increments based on like years of service or what the project. And she says, I didn't get per diem sometimes on out of town jobs. I found out white production designers were getting per diem and I wasn't. That's the racial implications of it. But I've talked to other women in the industry and we're all struggling with similar things. Something like that. That's ridiculous. Like, I mean, that's something small. Per diem. I mean, you should be able to pay people per diem outside when they're going out of town, because you need to have some money for like whatever food and stuff.
Expenses. Yeah.
And then lastly, I mean, that's another part. Like, there's a lot of issues that they're obviously hopefully they're consolidating for this reason to strike, and that'll be more effective. They'll have more leverage. But lastly, I will say is, like I said, I call BS on this idea of that there's not enough money to make these concessions, because a lot of these things, I don't think they're even going to. It's not. I don't think it'll be. Like I said, I haven't done the numbers, but there's no way you can tell me that if you're giving, I mean, even though rightfully so, you're giving these actors or certain producers at the back end. They're getting ridiculous profits. You know, I think Robert Downey Jr. made off the Avengers movies, like the first one, I think he made like $70 million. I know, but what is it? Bryan Singer made like $40 million off of Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, I'm not saying these people can't get their back end deals, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm like, if you can pay a ridiculous amount of money from the back end to some of these the higher above the line producers and writers and directors, the least you could do is have some sort of similar structure. If the movie does well, then let some of the below the line crew members get some equity too. Why not? So it's like even if you're a crew member, you got like an extra like, you know, $10,000 because the movie or whatever, 50,000 or whatever. Like, that makes a difference. It's like if you're not going to give all, I mean, even though they should still give these benefits up front, but like the least they could do is at least give them some of the back end and or just give them the benefits, some of these benefits, and then maybe you have to, like, I'm not saying cut, but like you have to figure out another way where the money's gonna come from. Be like, all right, well, maybe we don't have to give this person 40 million, you give them 30 million. I mean, no one's saying you can't get your money or your bonus, but it's like, come on, just keep your crew happy. It's like, that's the least you could do, because nobody can make a movie all by themselves. Even Robert Rodriguez, I don't care what he said. I respect him. El Mariachi, he didn't make that all by himself. He still had his actor friend, hooked him up with these resources. I mean, you could try to do something. I guess you could animate. You could animate by yourself, but it's going to take a long time. But even so, you're going to run into a time where you're going to need someone else to help.
You're still going to need
There's no way. Else. I don't believe anyone who says they're going to do it all by themselves.
Even if you're a one-man show, like, and getting the film out there, you know, publicity team, you're paying publicity. Like,
and another thing with El Mariachi, like, he actually had to get the audio redone. Someone else had to help him. So you're getting somebody. It's a collaborative art form. It's a collaborative art form. There's no getting around that. The final product is not going to be completed if you do not have help by other experts, and nobody is an expert at everything. The best directors, the best writers, producers, especially directors, they know that their movie is going to be great because they surround themselves with great people who are experts in their field. You might have a special effects expert, like visual effects
guru. You have a costume designer who's awesome.
You have your sound designer. You have production designer, art director. Your cinematographer, assistant director. The person who really runs the set is the assistant director. It's not even the director.
We were just talking about Whitney.
Exactly. All those roles are important. Prop master, grip. If you don't have someone who's great in all those aspects, who's the head of all those departments,
and people take this for granted too, like catering too. Like, y'all sleep with catering, like, you have to feed everybody, and then on top of that too, you have cast members that have specific diets, and the caterer has to be aware of that. And
now you have COVID. Now you have COVID protocols, so you need someone to like take care of that. So I'm like,
so much stuff, guys.
This is why movies cost a lot of money. This is why it like I said, it's a collaborative art form, and like I said, there's no way your movie's going to be done without collaborating with a whole bunch of people who are experts at their job. So they should be respected and treated well and paid well. And why not have people who worked with you that got who were treated well. Like if they're treated well, they're gonna want to keep working with you.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And you want to have that. You want to have that camaraderie. You want to have that team member. You want people to want to be on your set. And like this is something. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant, but
no, you're good.
This goes back to NYU. This goes back to. I'll shout out to Anthony Artis. One of my he still teaches there. Like I remember one of the things he would always say. He would be like, for student filmmakers specifically, it's like, make sure no matter what, you always have really good food on set because a lot of times with those productions, they're not getting paid at first or whatever. It's like, make people don't try to go cheap on the food. At least like don't give them like a bologna sandwich or whatever. Like you want to make sure people are like, oh man, that food was really good. Like, you know, because it makes a difference. You work in a lot of hours and you're getting at least you're getting quality food, like from at least as a student filmmaker, if you can't pay whatever, you know, the amount you can. Like little things like that help. So obviously when you have a budget, like there's no excuse. So that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, that's a lesson that could be learned for any upcoming filmmaker, and then especially in the industry, it's like really, it's not even, you know, there's no excuse. So that's all I was saying, and I hope they come to agreement. Hope they don't have to strike, but I feel like it seems like they're gonna have to a little bit to do this, and I hopefully all these companies and the AM was it the Alliance for Motion Picture and Television Producers, they come to an agreement with IATSE and give them these concessions, and rightfully so. So I'll just say that. But anyway,
for sure,
this is something that I can definitely.
No, I get it, man. No, like just as you were talking about, you know, with friends, with folks that you know their industry, and you know, folks that I know as well that are, you know, and all levels of, you know, the departments that you find with, you know, your favorite TV shows, films, what have you, you know, how important and pivotal each of those roles play. I mean, as I said, I know all the glitz and glamour goes to, you know, the filmmakers or the screenwriters or the producers or the actors, really. You know, all those other roles play, you know, just as important of a role, even though they don't always, you know, get all the limelight. So now with that being said, I feel that is an interesting segue to our next story. If you remember, like from a couple of shows ago, we were talking about how with a lot of these superhero films, you know, whether it's with DC, whether it's with Marvel, when those films, you know, get adapted for the big screen, a lot of times the creators that behind it are not seeing any, you know, revenue from it. And even if they are, it's so minuscule that you're like, really? Like all this, it doesn't really add up. Like all of this revenue was generated, again, talking about that revenue, you know, all this revenue was generated on that IP, on that character. And yet such in terms of the percentage, you know, between what the creator who made it to begin with, and then seeing, you know, his work being realized, you know, in the film medium or any other, you know, lucrative medium, not really, you know, get any really benefit from that. So there is a, you know, story that made the rounds this week that's Marvel is suing to keep the rights to many of its iconic characters. So, you know, what do I mean by that? So let me get into it. For Marvel, you know, in the past several months, Marvel has been receiving termination notices regarding some of their characters, and it's coming from the estates and heirs of various, you know, major comic creators, whether it's Ditko or Stan Lee or Don Rico, you know, just to name a few. And this is, you know, shout out to, I mean, it's all over the place, but in terms of the example that I'm providing here for you, it's out of Deadline, and as I said, these estates are providing, you know, these you know, termination notices. And the crazy thing is that when it comes to this story, is not necessarily about the fact that Marvel would lose the rights to these characters. It's just that in order, if they ended up losing in these cases with these termination notices, you know, it would mean that they would have a co-ownership and would have to provide payouts to many of these creators and their estates. So, Jerome, you hear this, and you get that idea of a major company, being able to being willing to share the profits of characters that they themselves didn't create, but are still benefiting from financially. And you have like the estates of the creators that slaved behind they created many of these characters, and it was unknown to them if anything would amount from these characters. But it's still the principle of that idea of working with those that that are pivotal in your success as an entity. If these creators never created these characters that are billion-dollar franchises, we wouldn't have them. So what are your thoughts on that, on this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the idea of the people who created these characters, regardless, they should get some sort of compensation and equity, and like they should continue to reap the benefits of the profits that are made from these characters being featured in comic books, movies, TV shows, you name it, merchandise, whatever they can. But the only thing is, I mean, and that's what this is all about. Like the estate, a lot of these guys obviously passed away, and they didn't. I mean, I'm sure they got paid, they had some money, but like not nearly as much as what they should get, they should receive. So the estates are actually, they have like a good lawyer, and they're figuring out a way to like have these termination notices to the registered copyrights, and so they can be one of the estate, or the heirs of the estate can actually have co-ownership in these characters, and then receive the necessary profits. But I mean, like I said, I don't know what the paperwork exactly said when these people were hired at Marvel, and that's the reason why a lot of these corporations do this. I mean, like this is what Marvel. I think it's the lawyer that represents Marvel, Petroselli, and Toberoff. I think that's the Marvel and the rep there. Okay. In the Kirby case, Marvel and the Toberoff rep there. Okay. Well, basically that, like, I mean, yeah, they said, Petroselli told Deadline, since these works were made for hire and thus owned by Marvel, we've filed these lawsuits to confirm that the termination notices are invalid and of no legal effect. So,
and unfortunately, I mean, that's what's normally used as like a blanket statement. I feel like, it's work for hire, so it's not applicable. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not a lawyer, you're not a lawyer, whatever. It's like that's no one's saying people shouldn't get their just due. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't, but that is why there's paperwork, and that is why, like, when you work, you work for a lot of times production companies do this too. In any company, they do this on purpose because they're like, if you create something at their company, they want to own it. Even I'll tell you the difference even between USC and NYU. Like, that's another reason why I went to NYU. I mean, okay, I didn't get into USC. That's the only school I didn't get into, but they own your movies. I don't know if they changed it, but like, John Singleton, when he made Boys in the Hood, it was a short, like he didn't own that at USC when he made that short film. He owned the idea, the intellectual property, I guess, but the actual film, he did like a shorter version or something there. He didn't own that. So he was able to make Boys in the Hood, but USC has something where it's like the actual projects you make there, they own the films. Now, I don't know if they still did that, but I remember that was a difference compared to NYU. NYU was like, no, you make whatever you make, that's yours. So, I mean, hey, it is what it is. I mean, they're both great schools, not going to say anything, but companies do stuff like this too, where it's like, I work for a production company, a few, and they said like anything I do at the production company, they would own, because I'm a work for hire, or if anything I worked on there, I'm a work for hire. Now, that doesn't mean anything I did outside of the production company they're going to own. Like, I could do whatever outside, that's fine. But if you're actually working for a company and you sign a document saying you're a work for hire, and they're saying that they own anything that you do there, I mean, I'm not saying it's completely right because you don't know what the success is going to be, but you did sign that. So like, we're going to see where this goes, what the outcome is legally. I mean, of course, they both have good lawyers. And I mean, when you're going up against a big corporation, I mean, it's sad to say it has to do with who has the better lawyers.
But it's not even that. I want to say that it is. It looks like there has been, speaking on, the example that you gave with Mark Tombaroff, is that there has been a precedent set, unfortunately, and in that prior example where it involved not Marvel but DC, DC won the case. So maybe things might turn out differently this time, because it said, in the article, and
Well, they settled. Yeah, they settled because it went.
It said that DC saved off termination by counterclaiming against Toberoff and asserting interference of its rights. So, like, there has been other instances of this, coming up. It's not the first one, and in the other example, the comic book house won. So.
Yeah, but just because of, a precedent helps, but I'm just saying, like, whatever. I mean, that's why you go to court or whatever, and they can figure it out. But I'm just saying, still, like, that's why they have these clauses and they have these legal. Like I said, just because something might not be completely good or right or whatever, it's like, that's why you have to read. I mean, it's the same with the music industry.
Between those lines.
All I'm saying is, like, you also got to read what the hell you're signing. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, I'm not. I mean, it kind of sucks, but a lot of these, music artists say the same thing. Kanye West, he put his whole contract on Twitter. Now, there's a reason why why record labels are like, they're extra greedy, I feel like, in this country. But if it's a regular deal, a lot of times they're barely giving the artist any percentage because they're putting up the money. Like, it makes sense. And if you read the contract, that's what a lot of these deals are, or whatever. Unless you're someone like a Master P or Baby or whoever, or even Jay-Z, where they're like, no, we want a distribution deal. We'll put up the money to market and promote, and then we get a higher cut. But not everybody works that way. Not everyone's entrepreneurs. So it's like, if you're just, I want to get a deal, whatever, I sign it. A lot of times these deals are like this, where it's like, hey, you're getting a standard deal. I mean, you got to read the contract. Hey, some of these artists, they should be getting paid way more for their music. But the thing is, if you don't own the masters, if you don't own all the publishing, if you're not producing and writing everything, if someone else is writing and producing, and then the record label's putting up all this money, you can't make the music either. I mean, you're not gonna be able to, and they're distributing whatever. So you could say the same thing with, Marvel or whatever for comic books and for the movies and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, they should, these ideas were created from these actual artists and these storytellers. So regardless, they should get a better percentage anyway. I mean, it's just the right thing to do, I would think, and like, you can't tell me about recouping expenses. I mean, how much expenses does it cost to, like, really, draw? I mean, of course you're hiring people to draw a comic or, make the, color it and think of the story. But it's like, I'm sure if there's any expenses, they have been recouped. You know what I'm saying? And then the movies, obviously they cost more money, but, like, there's plenty of money that can go around to be given to the heirs. So I'm sure, I bet you in the end, there's probably going to be some sort of settlement or whatever. But like they said, like, what was this? They had to settle for, like, in the previous case, the precedent. Yeah. So, yeah, because it was about to go to the Supreme Court, and then it was settled just before them in 2014. So, yeah. That's regarding the Superman matter that we were discussing, but it's just interesting. It just shows all of these different cases are occurring. The lesson to be learned is, regardless of whatever you're creating,
careful,
especially if you're working with a big company or anything like that, you have to really understand what the agreement is and have the paperwork benefiting you as much as possible, because this is what happens when your idea or whatever your idea, your characters, your intellectual property becomes massively successful. You want to make sure you're reaping the benefits and the profits that you are due, because otherwise you have to try and get it retroactively, and it's sad, and or especially when you die. I mean, you look at Robert Ludlum. He wrote all those books. I mean, okay, he wrote all those books, The Bourne Identity or whatever. Like, there's a whole bunch of them. They just started making the movies, like, obviously after he passed away. So, so I don't know what the deal is there, but, like, sometimes you don't get those bestsellers or those big hits when you're alive still. It might be later, but you want to protect yourself also. So if you have any heirs, like, then your estate reaps the benefit, or, reaps the rewards, or your heirs do. So, I mean, it's This stuff is definitely, it's inevitable, especially if you have a major. Whenever certain intellectual property becomes massively successful, there's always going to be some sort. I feel like there's always going to be some sort of lawsuit or anything to make sure that the people who originally created these characters or these ideas, gets their just due. And like I said, I think rightfully so. But we'll see what the we'll see what the outcome is in the settlement. But yeah.
It's unfortunate. Like, as I said, I hope just in the case that we were talking about, with the strike, that that even despite, I know you have that matter of what was signed in the contract. Again, like, just the principle, like, I get it. I mean, I get what you're saying, on that legal end. And again, guys, we're both not lawyers. We're neither one of us are lawyers, but still, just considering what it entails is you're not losing, the rights to the character. You're just, being able to recognize, the work of, the person who brought it to life, that created it for you, that you're reaping the benefits of. So, but with that in mind, I know, just to stay kind of, I guess, in that superhero realm, but on a lighter note, that will close off most of the stories that we have here for this episode of This Week in Review. But there are a couple of other stories that I wanted to get into. I wanted to be able to also, make an announcement, that New York Comic-Con announcement, if you will. So let me put that up here. So on October 9th, guys, I will be acting as MC for an upcoming panel that will be happening at New York Comic-Con. Let me pull it up now. Let's see, one sec. Here we go. So here we go. All right. So yes, for the Cheesy Line contest. So on October 9th, this panel will be taking place. If you're wondering what that will entail, it's a panel that will deal with, will provide people an opportunity to say, some of the cheesiest lines from our, our favorite forms of pop culture, whether it's video games, TV, film. And there will be prizes involved to see, how people have executed those lines, all those, great one-liners that we like from our favorite films, TV shows, what have you. So that will be happening on, as you can see here, on Saturday, October 9th, from 6:30 to 7:30 in room 406.2. Only at New York Comic-Con. So that's let's say, a couple of weeks from now. That you guys can take part in that. If you come by, make sure you say what's up. Make sure you say hi. It's great to see a lot of people that are watching the show and enjoying some of the stuff that we're doing here at Movies and Shakers Unlimited. But so by all means, come by, say what's up. And then also, additionally, from that news that will be happening next week. Just in a little bit, if you guys remember from our prior show that we have Comic-Con special edition happening, and hashtag TurkeyCon. I know the person that I have coming on the show, is weary of that hashtag, but it started from her. It is not my fault. It is hers, but she will be here to join us while we talk about the live stream that's will be happening live. So that's going to be happening not too long after this. We'll be going live. So, come back, join us, as you guys out there are doing the special edition ticket sale, and talk about, share with us, how things are going, what you guys are up to. I'm helping out, a couple of friends, to get their tickets for the show. So I figured, why not do a live stream and give people a window into some of the things that go on for those that attend as attendees, what many of them go through in getting, tickets for Comic-Con. I figure it'd be fun, especially if I'm getting it for, friends and family myself. So, so make sure you're, there for that. But before I go, Jerome, I'll punt it off to you. Can you tell folks where they can find you?
let off some steam, Bennett. Anyway, I'll think of cheesy lines. Yeah, thanks for joining us for our 31st episode also. And yeah, if you want to check out some more content and everything that we have going on social media, you can go to Twitter or Instagram, and I'm at JW Bourgeois 21. Or for Movers and Shakers, it's Move and Shake UNLTD on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to support us on also Instagram, it's Movers Shakers Unlimited. Yep, right there. And if you want to support us on Patreon, it's also Movers Shakers Unlimited. Patreon.com, Movers Shakers Unlimited. And yeah, definitely we'll be back. And we have a lot more stories. We're gonna definitely address every week. And there should be also some more exciting events we'll be at. I know you're gonna be at New York Comic Con, so that should be good. And I guess if you're at that San Diego little mini version, you tell me what's up, because I am not gonna be at that one, but we have plenty other trips.
And I can also announce here, I wasn't planning on, but why not? I'll announce it, is that we'll also be at Rhode Island Comic Con, so be on the lookout for that happening in the top of November. So I'll be announcing some things coming up until that show, but yes, make sure that you are sticking around. But other than that, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator, of course, of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Choi ENT, which you see down below. You can also find me at Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. And for some of you, I suppose I will see you in a few minutes. All right. Peace.
All right. Peace out.